Good morning, Caralyn. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks, Deborah.
So why don't you just share a little bit about yourself? You recently, over the past year, have become a family member. And so just give us a little bit of context, if you wouldn't mind.
So I was called in October, alerted that my aunt needed help. And she clearly had dementia. Nothing was diagnosed, but she was in deep crisis very quickly. She doesn't have kids. So it was my sister and me, her nieces, that dove in to help. It was a little bit tricky at first because I actually hadn't had a relationship with either of them for quite a while. But we got everything. We really just went into a nice flow, got her into a home extremely quickly. And by the end of December, she was at her long-term care home and diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So that's how we kind of came into the long-term care business. And we had done a lot of research, and the research was all the negative news articles that we'd read about long-term care homes. We hadn't even gotten to be able to see inside the home when my aunt went in. So we were going in really blind and really hot because we were just coming through a big crisis.
Yeah, well, and that is such an unusual time. I think I recall you saying that you did the handoff in the parking lot.
It was in the front foyer, which was outside. When I was reading in your book that usually the intake takes, a few hours, like ours was half an hour, boom, 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 like really quickly. And everyone and the staff members that were dealing with us were in full PPE. So I couldn't tell one person from another. And when they say I am the nurse, I don't even know what that means. The nurse of the whole home, my aunt's nurse, I didn't even know. So yeah, it was a very quick process. You sort of felt like you're slapped upside the head.
Right. Yes. It's a traumatic experience, really, what I find with families, and certainly I experienced myself. I describe it as one of the hardest days of our lives because we don't anticipate in that one day we'll need to be it's again the language that we use, putting someone in a nursing home.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had the opportunity of meeting you because I was invited to where your aunt lives, that home, for a town hall meeting.
Yes.
And I was delighted when you reached out to me after that call and indicated that I think you were in the process of getting a copy of my book. Now what?
Yeah, they had indicated that there were copies there. I got a copy the next day. I came home, I read it in 2 hours, and I reached out to you and I'm like, this is amazing. I wish I had this when we came on. Like even the book, just the book without even any knowledge of you would have been so helpful. So it was, that was the game changer for me, to shift my thinking and shift how I was operating with my mindset in the home.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think you've been on the initial side and all of the chaos and all of that happens, and it sounds like you've really shifted and stepped into your role as a family member of your aunt. So just share a little bit more about that, as far as what has been the biggest shift for you as a result of working with the material in the Now What book.
Well, I didn't realize when we were coming into the home that we were coming into a home. We were coming into a home. We were not coming into really a clinical setting. My aunt, sometimes when she's not too lucid, she calls it a hospital, but we're coming into a home. And my sort of mindset was us against you. Like, we need to protect my aunt because of the negative things that we had heard in the media. The first 17 days, we didn't even get to go into the home because of COVID. My aunt had to be isolated. She ended up getting COVID, but she was asymptomatic. So she was okay. But, she had fallen a few times. And because I didn't understand anything about how the home worked, I didn't know who to go to. So I was going above the head nurse to the director of care because I thought that's what I had to do. I want to escalate it. You want the best.
Right.
So I was coming off very defensive and a little bit jalapeno-y, as you mentioned in your book. So that was my initial experience. And after a while, you start to settle in, things start to settle down. My aunt's medications got adjusted the way they needed to be. So then, we're starting to relax. And then really reading the book gave me some big shifts, understanding like, I didn't even understand that. I should have known this. The staff were grieving the person that had been in my aunt's room prior to her. And I'm a very empathetic person. Once I clued in, because I didn't realize that the staff actually really cared. And the more I observed and the more I realized my aunt relied on her one main PSW and in the relationship that they have, yeah, I could just relax and take a breath and say, and really observe and evaluate and think, like, how do I want to have any interaction that could be potentially tense? How do I want it to end well? Because I want it to end well for me and my aunt, but also for the staff, because I need to honor them as well. They're doing not only a work, they're doing, it's a gift. It's a ministry. I'm not even sure what you could call it. It's a life calling, because nobody's in that business for the money.
Right. Yeah. And so, I think that families and care teams would agree that they want to have a more productive, harmonious relationship. And, when I wrote about the chapter about admission anxiety, and it was an awareness for me. I mean, even though I worked in the business for so many years, and when I was a family member, a resident's wife with my husband, Ty, when he was admitted, and it wasn't until I was actually in homes doing consulting and doing focus groups and hearing directly from the PSWs about how the morning, they don't really worry about the resident that they're getting, because they've pretty well seen it all, and they're skilled and they're trained and they're equipped. It's the family that they're anxious about meeting, because they don't know, oh, are they going to be difficult? And I think as well, even particularly through COVID, this defensiveness of, well, everybody thinks LTC sucks right now. Like, I've literally heard that. And you and I have talked about that. And that's not the case, but it's almost that defensiveness. And I think what I'm hearing you say is, as a family member, having that awareness allows you to have empathy for them, because we expect them to have empathy for us. But it really does work both ways.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I even notice if I go into the home and I'm walking down the hall and I'm grumpy, no one's looking at me. No, that's not a nice energy to bring into the home. So I'm making sure when I arrive that, okay, I've just driven through some traffic. Okay, I'm here. Let's be present and let's go through this hall and let's say hello to everyone. And every single time I am met with absolute smiles. I know people's names. There's lovely camaraderie. So there are downsides, but I have completely changed my mind on the way a home works. That staff is amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. And that's something that I think we really need to be focusing on. And that also reminds me of how, when we have certain expectations, sometimes the expectations that we have are based on our assumptions, our beliefs, what we think, how we think things should be. Would you say when you first came in as a family member compared to now, are your expectations different at all?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think, like, I'm a person that goes into any situation, even the grocery store, and I look at systems like, how could this be better? Mm-hmm. So I was struck by how cold the orientation or onboarding intake was. And I just thought, well, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. They can't do it any different. This is the way it is. So I felt very lost. Like, I am stepping into a whole new world. I know zero. And I think when you're in a world that you're so familiar with, you forget that people are lost. And I think I still have this expectation, maybe a hope that the new caregivers coming in, that the home can sort of revolutionize the way that we are doing intake, because I think it would help a lot. But as for me, as far as expectations of the staff, I don't expect them to spend a lot of time with my aunt. I see how busy they are. I know how fast they move, but I also know when I have an issue, they're very attentive and they attend to me right away. So that hasn't been the issue for me. It's been more like admin wise, that's been my frustration. And maybe I'm unique. Like maybe I'm unique. Like Yeah, because I know why everyone's there. We're on this last chapter of their life, right? So I know there's going to be declines, and I know things aren't going to be perfect. But my jalapeno moments haven't come from, my aunt's hair's not done or her lipstick's not on. It's more of not understanding why something's happening and having to dig for it. That's been a frustration because everything I've learned, I've had to ask, 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 ask. Nobody told me, so actually your meeting on the Zoom meeting, 4 months in was the thing that allowed me to breathe because I realized, okay, I can talk to other caregivers and the other caregivers want to talk with me and share with me. Some of them have been in there for 10 years, so, I rely on them sometimes too to ask questions.
You joined a club that you didn't anticipate being a member of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're right. I think sometimes we forget, and it's also even just knowing where to start, being educated on things like the family council and the degree to which the family council, how active they are and how they interact with new family members, particularly during a time when there wasn't the ability to walk down the hall and have somebody say, hey, Carolyn, or how's it going? Or, oh, we haven't met before. My husband, Ty, is in room 338, that kind of thing is something that we find that we miss.
I didn't even know there was a family council until 4 months in when I read it in your book. I'm like, oh, there's a family council. So I started Googling it, like, what's a family council? What do they do? Why haven't I heard of a family council? Why hasn't anyone reached out? And I still actually am not quite clear on the role of the family council. So I guess I haven't had time to figure it out. But that's, again, is that lack of communication that frustrates me, because I see it as unnecessary, because it's very easy to have clarity. It's not easy to have clarity, but once you understand that you're being ambiguous, then you can create clarity. So that was, one of my big.
So with respect to, like, in communication, what advice, if you had the magic wand, what advice would you give, or what would you want to see different in how the home communicates with their families?
That's a great question. So I noticed sometimes in the Zoom meetings that the staff would have, that once a month Zoom meeting, that they would say something like, when COVID's over, visiting will go back to normal. But I don't know what normal is, because I've only known a COVID life. Once in a while we'll get emails, and the emails will be ambiguous, as if I know what the regular thing is, but I don't know what the regular thing is. But my biggest thing, and I know I loop on it a lot because we've talked about this a lot, is that stinking onboarding. It would be so easy. Like this book, now what? I'm sure they can get a bulk package of it. Why not have the receptionist write a little note into it? Because notes are lovely. Like, you wrote me a note one time, and I have it. It's meaningful. Write a little note, welcome to our home, something like that, and give this a read. This is going to answer a lot of questions. It's like a go-to guide. Maybe even have, like, we did have a package that came with us, but the package didn't explain how the home worked. Maybe have the reception spend half an hour answering, like, just tell me how the home works. We're divided into units. Each unit has a nurse. The nurse is who do you go to if you have a problem, not the director of care, which is costing the home a lot of money, because I'm going to the home's director of care and the home's administrator. I thought the administrator was like the head admin assistant. I didn't know she was the person that ran the whole home. So here I am wasting all this time of these people higher up, when really the receptionist, who has their finger on a lot, could have handled things. And then connecting me with another caregiver would have been actually very helpful too, so that I had someone else to talk to, and someone else, that maybe even, knows the book. So for example, if I was a caregiver mentor, I would say, I had my jalapeno moments. Okay, then that's going to de-escalate to someone to help them understand you're not alone. You're not alone. You've made mistakes, and it's okay to have jalapeno moments. As you say in your book, you can be sweet and savory as well. So for communication, I wish that, the start of the story, we started the story a little rough, and I think it's a little unnecessary, because it's so wonderful. That's the other thing. When I've seen, sorry, I'm hearing, this is what I'm passionate about. When I've seen other people being doing the intake outside, and especially even with my unit nurse, I just want to interrupt the meeting and say to them, it's going to be okay. This woman is amazing. It's, you know, I can answer any questions for you if you'd like it's not going to be as horrifying as you think, you know. And I want this chapter for my aunt to be just as great as the other chapters. So death is something that we fear and we don't even talk about it. Nobody talks about it. We don't make light of it. We don't joke about it. We don't, you know, have those conversations. And I have been so fortunate to be able, because my aunt's still semi-lucid, to have wonderful, deep conversations and helping her through this next chapter. So most people are scared. And that's why we have our jalapeno moments, because of lack of knowledge and fear. And if you can help my lack of knowledge, that will help my fear, and that will help me move into a more balanced way of being.
Well, one of the things that I say is you're not just meeting the family, you're meeting their grief.
Yeah.
And when we are grieving, and the other complexity is that sometimes families don't realize that they're grieving because we associate grief with someone who's passed. And yet there's a loss of independence of the relationship for the individual moving into long-term care. There's the loss that they're experiencing. And so, you know, there are times where we're not at our best when we're in that place of grief, and guilt, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And that's, and then the fear, like you're saying, and that knowledge gap that happens, because if as families, we don't know what we don't know, and then we're trying to stumble along while we're trying to figure out, now what, right? Now this change has happened, now what? And, you know, like right now there's 40,000 people on the wait list. So for some people, it can be a very long wait as they're white knuckling, or it can be like, it sounds like in your situation, pretty fast. And then I think it's 24 hours when you get the phone call that you have to decide to say yes.
It is. Yeah, it is. For us, it was a little different because it was right through Christmas. So we actually waited 3 days, but yeah, we actually, yeah, we got in extremely quickly. And that just goes to show, like, I'm a fast mover, and I like to get things done. So when I don't understand something, it like puts the brakes on me, and I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I recognize too, because you talked about admission anxiety in your book, I recognize, you know, the staff members are not just having to be professional when they're there, but they have their lives outside of the home too. And they are bringing in, you know, marriages that are struggling, or kids that are sick, or financially, like, they have all the worries too. They're no different than us. So, you know, I've been able to really, really have empathy for them.
It's like, you know, we say, what family doesn't have dysfunction?
Yeah.
And that's whether you're a family member or, like you say, a care team member. And it's a really unique environment, if people haven't been exposed to it, because it's where people live 24/7, where people work and people visit. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like what we talk about in long-term care. It's we work where the residents live. They don't live where the staff work.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think has made the most difference in your relationship with your aunt's care team members?
The most difference, I would say, having the understanding, having the knowledge. Like, I hope I'm not sounding like an ad for your book, but I'm super passionate about it because, you know, it really spoke to me. It helped me understand how things worked. That, honestly, that really has made the most difference. That has made the most difference. And then staff allowing me to, you know, when I had those jalapeno moments, I could tell sometimes the eyes were averted, and they would, you know, they would go to the back down the hall, down the hall kind of thing, you know. And I don't like that feeling because I'm a very relational person, right? But I get it. And so they've given me the grace to be able to change and to have that shift. And I would say that, you know, I was thinking the other day, when my aunt passes, I'm losing a whole family. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Like, I have come to feel so much gratitude for what they do, and the care that they give, because I know I couldn't do it. And that's the other thing too. I recognize, what's the alternative? I could be coming to my aunt's every day, or I could be living with her. I could be exhausted. You know, I recognize some caregivers, I think you experienced this, a long process at home where caregivers are absolutely exhausted. So I am actually just so grateful that the staff have been as gracious and understanding as they have. And yeah.
And what's really interesting about that, Caralyn, is that as they give you that grace, I kind of think about that spirit of reciprocity. It's likely that you would give them grace if one of them is having a bad day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
it really is a bit of sharing that vulnerability and versus having the defenses up and the protection and the what you described early in our conversation, the us versus them. We are coming together with a shared goal of providing the best care and quality of life for your aunt, your loved one, and their resident. And where sometimes the drama gets in the way, right? When stuff happens. So that's very cool. What advice would you give to new family members as far as navigating this transition?
I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't have the book, it's going to be a rougher ride unless homes change the way they do their intake. For me, I not only read the book, but I applied what you said, because reading's not going to do anything. It's just applying and seeing it how it goes. Taking the time to stop when I'm feeling reactive, taking the time to stop, taking a breath and responding, that can really shift how an interaction is going to go. And I think talking to other caregivers and feeling okay to, make eye contact. I make eye contact with all the residents. I say hi to whoever I can, but even just in talking with the other caregivers, it has really made me feel like I'm more part of this community. So I think that's the best advice I can give, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like being able to recognize that they are joining a new community. And let's face it, not every family member has the level of engagement as like, it's not all the same, right? Some live in a completely different province or country, and they're having to rely over the phone, or maybe they have additional help that's going in to help support the resident. And then other people who are there every day. Right. But I think part of it is being able to be intentional with how am I going to step into this role as a family member of a loved one living in long-term care, right? Because and it sounds like you've really embraced that. That also comes with responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a huge responsibility, and it's managing, like my sister's the other caregivers, so it's managing. And she has a really different flavor of her personality. So and we've done very well together, very, very well together. But it's if she has misunderstandings, she actually hasn't read the book yet because I haven't given it to her. I've sort of hogged it, but it's helping her through any issues that she has, and really talking. So it's really about talking and talking. And when I don't understand something, just recently I received an email I didn't understand, and I emailed them back and I said, can you explain like the reasoning behind this so I can. What I was trying to say was, so I don't have an episode where I react on you. Can you help me please understand it? And so that, I got an answer. I could understand the situation a bit better. I don't necessarily agree with whatever, that issue was, but I just need to respect and accept what the home chooses to do. They're guided by ministry too, I'm imagining, right? So they have guidelines that they're kind of handcuffed to, but it is what it is. And that's not a hill, like, am I going to be willing to die on that hill? No, that's not the fight I want to have, because I'll save my fight for something else that's more important, whatever that will be. Like, I don't even know what's going to come down the pipe with my aunt. So we've got some things coming up.
Right. And as that journey continues, and that can also be a difficult thing for families to face or deal with, is when one's health declines, then how that changes things.
Yeah.
So
and that's the benefit of talking to other caregivers, because when they mention, their loved one has dementia or Alzheimer's or something similar to my aunt, I'm listening and asking as many non-personal questions as I can to find out like what am I going to expect and what will I come across, you know. So it's been really actually very helpful because that firsthand experience is what I'm learning from, and it's invaluable.
Yeah. 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 You can't be too prepared, and there still will be those knocks that happen, right?
Yeah.
But at least if you're kind of aware of that, and you've got your support system in place.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to staff so they can avoid having those jalapeno moments or be on the receiving end of a jalapeno moment with a family member?
Mm. Yeah. Don't take it personally. Don Miguel Ruiz says this in the form agreements. Don't take it personally. It really isn't about the staff member. I'm not really mad at you. I'm just mad at the situation. I'm mad at what I don't know. I'm in fear, you know. So if they can learn to, that's a learned thing. We all need to learn that, right? That's why there's a whole book written about it. Know that I'm going to have my jalapeno moments, and if you can give me the grace the next time I come in to like just be reset, because who I am the next day is not who I was necessarily the day before, nor are you. So, and I feel that the staff has really done a good job with that. You know, because they gave me a second chance, you know, and that doesn't happen a lot. I mean, they have to, and this is until my aunt passes, she's there. So it's like a marriage that we can't get divorced from. So
Right.
we have to learn to live, we have to learn to live with one another and operate together. So I feel like the staff actually have done a very good job with that, you know, in hindsight. So yeah, I think the jalapeno thing, and know that I know nothing. That's the other thing. I didn't realize that 80% of people in the home, in my aunt's home anyway, have dementia. So then that got me thinking, oh, okay, well, you've worked here for 10 years and 80% of the people that you've worked with have dementia. You might know a thing or two. And this is my first time at this. So
Right.
be patient with us because I don't know the systems. I don't know how things work. And you know, you might have to explain things again and again. You know, this is a repeating process with every single caregiver, but yeah, if you can just be patient with us and know that the more knowledge I have, then I can breathe more. I can de-escalate a little.
You know, it's interesting. I read somewhere where they talked about the whole adjustment period, that it's actually when a resident first moves in, the resident actually gets settled and climatizes the fastest. And then it's the staff, and the last is the family.
I didn't know
And
that.
you know, I thought it was so interesting because we would assume that it would be the resident, the person whose life is impacted the most, is going to have the hardest time adjusting. And you know, for families, it can take 3 months or longer to really feel like they can kick the training wheels off.
Yeah.
And from as you described, the knowledge as well as just the emotional adjustment. And for some people, like if it's a spouse, for example, where they've been living together, it's thinking about the impact on the family's routine, the wife or the husband who's going home by themselves, and all of the things that they did together as a couple.
Yeah.
Right? The journey that is involved in that.
Yeah, I just had a bit of an epiphany as you told me that, which was part of my fear. Like I was thinking, why does the resident settle in so well? Well, they're just mostly just dealing with them, whereas I'm dealing with my emotions, and then I'm imagining what they're going through. So I'm creating this pretend scenario that doesn't even exist. I'm imagining they're scared, they're lonely, they're bored, they're not being taken care of. How are they feeling? Who's walking them through this grief that they're feeling? You know, if they're lucid enough to understand that. And that imagination that's going on through my mind is creating an issue that doesn't even exist.
Right.
Wow.
So we project our own, how we would feel about it in our age and stage, right? Yeah, it's a really, really great insight.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That was a good little epiphany I had.
Always things to learn, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Before I let you go, any final thoughts, words of wisdom?
I think you may have mentioned in one of your books, because I'm starting Recipe for Empathy, the concept of, a dog that's been under stress and they shake, or a duck that has had a fight with another duck and then they shake it off, and I think that's important to like shake off one interaction before you go into the next thing. And I'm even reminded that, if I'm talking with my aunt and then a PSW comes in, that is also that's a new segment. There's many segments, right? Because it's a new energy that's been brought into it. So there's an opportunity to reset again and again and again. And then as far as my jalapeno moments, I'm learning to let go of the need to be right, which keeps me really stuck because I'm right. And then again, I may loop on whatever situation, and that will get my anger going more and more and more as I start to imagine in this little fantasy world when something's happened. So I realize I need to let go of my need to be right, and the same thing with hopefully with the home. And that can just help us learn. Like, this is a learning experience for everybody. And even, I imagine even the social worker that's been through it with a million families, every family is different. Every personality is different. So yeah. But I would say if I could go to the newspaper now and write an article or be interviewed, I would say that there are a lot of misconceptions. And while some of the things that the media is struggling with, or that people are struggling with, it is a reality. It's the people in the home that make the difference. And bottom line, that's all that matters at the end of the day is, does my aunt feel loved? Her very last journal entry was September 24th. And she said, I hope my regular PSW comes back soon. I'm going to say that.
Oh,
That's lovely. That is the gold, Deb. That's the gold right there. That's all I need to know, that she hopes her regular PSW comes back soon.
yeah.
I thought I wasn't going to cry, but I'm still going through it. So I know you understand what it's like, because the emotions are right there, right? So,
well, and what's lovely about that, though, is that the tears are around, they're happy tears, right?
Yes,
That what
yes.
you're seeing is a true relationship. And I can think of many situations in my journey with my parents and my husband. It's those moments that matter, that you remember, and years from now looking back, it's those little moments and gestures that sometimes the staff don't even realize that they're making that impact, because it's how they're showing up and how they care.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more of those kinds of stories, and that emotional reaction that you have, knowing that PSW loves and cares for your aunt, right?
Oh,
She's got her back.
absolutely. Absolutely. Like, my aunt's room's decorated, like her apartment was. So it's very warm and welcoming. She's trying her best to do a little bit of reading. She actually just finished the Hunger Games, and the evening nurse noticed that she had the Hunger Games. I hadn't brought the other two books yet, and he brought her one of those books for her to read. Like, that's very thoughtful. Her PSW brought her flowers one day from her garden. I mean, who does that, right? Who does that? It's just, I know that this is what they do. I just didn't know. I didn't know that that's the level of relationship that they have. So, yeah.
And those moments of generosity when they have residents who don't have family, and that they're going out and buying Christmas presents. And, again, it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but it's that they don't want any resident in their home to be forgotten.
Yeah. I didn't know that that's something they would do. They certainly don't discuss that in the media. And it's
No, they don't.
It's such a shame. So yeah, it's quite beautiful. It's more beautiful. This whole experience is more beautiful than I thought it would be. And I think that's the gift, that I can see that, and that I choose to see it. Like, I can look at all the yucky stuff, but I choose not to. I choose to focus on the positive things and everything that's going well. And that's creating this wonderful flow that continues, right? Because people feel that energy when I come in, and I don't know, I like to see their faces light up when they come in, instead of them averting their eyes and, oh crap.
That's right, bending down to tie their shoelaces, even though their shoes don't have shoelaces.
Exactly. That was a good comment in the book. Yeah.
Well, Caralyn, thank you so much. Your insights are invaluable, and I just appreciate you taking the time and the passion that you have as a family member, and just your openness to learning, and you're stepping into the role as a real champion for your aunt. And I
Well,
just think that's lovely.
thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you do. You took a big risk leaving your corporate world and doing this, and it's made a difference in my life. So thank you so much for what you did, for your bravery.
Thank you.
Thank you.